Welcome to the Rise and Wander podcast, where we'll explore adventure, spirituality, and empowerment through the outdoors and beyond. Join me, Carla Amador, as we focus on topics around the mental, physical, spiritual, and emotional benefits derived through the outdoors. You'll also hear inspiring stories, get educated, and more. Let's get started. This season's podcast is sponsored by Oboz Footwear, based out of Bozeman, Montana. I proudly wear my Oboz footwear for hiking, traveling, and more. They have many styles and options to choose from for all your winter and hiking needs. Looking for hiking boots, recovery shoes, or fast and light hikers? Look no further and check them out at obozfootwear.com. Welcome to the Rise and Wander episode 8 of the Kilimanjaro series. Today I'm going to be talking all about Summit Day and completing this lifelong goal that I had of climbing Mount Kilimanjaro. So thank you so much for making it this far with us and for being on this journey with me. So I had talked about everything leading up to Summit Day in the last episode. And today I want to relive what Summit Day was like. I did not sleep very much. There was thunder and lightning, and also I don't tend to sleep well during the day. So since we had hiked that day, I was in my tent resting. That's all I could do the whole evening. And so around 11 or 10, I got up, started getting ready, and then we had a meal. And all of us at that point were getting our gear on, and we were going to go for the summit, even though we were having this interesting weather. So, yeah, the guides came. We talked about everything, had our game plan. And as we got ready and got all our gear on, and we were getting ready to start, a light snow started coming. And that was an interesting part of the climb because now it went from rain to snow and created this very hazy, interesting condition. It was really interesting. I remember as you're going through and you're hiking up and you start seeing lights, there was singing in the far distance, and it just really felt, wow, we're really doing this. We didn't know how long it was going to take. We knew it was going to be a long morning and we would be there around sunrise. But at this point, the altitude is starting to hit because I remember for me, all I could remember was how quiet everything felt. And I just kept telling myself to focus on breathing and just focusing on the breath, because with each step, you're taking a deep breath. You don't have as much oxygen up there. And so I could really feel my breath getting shallower and shallower. And at this point, we were at about 15,000 feet. And I just remember being in the present moment and so present with myself, so present with the breath and just each step. And I think that is a lesson in life. A lot of the teachings talk about being in the present moment, trying to be here now. And I really felt that on the mountain. And I think that was really powerful. So, as I was continuing to hike and my group was hiking, at some point, a couple hours later, there was some commotion happening on the mountain and someone needed assistance. They were getting maybe oxygen. So that was quite interesting because you're covered up. There's snow, there's singing in the distance, there's people hiking in front of you, there's lights, there's just a lot of things going on. What I could equate it to was this sense of being on the moon where you're wearing a spacesuit and you can't really, you can see, but you're also like breathing and you're aware, but you're also in your own bubble. It was a little startling to see someone needing assistance. And of course, we kept going. It wasn't within our group. Then, it just starts getting colder and colder as you're going up. And I'm just putting on layers and more layers. And it gets to a point where it's getting really cold. And even though I have all my layers on, I at that point was, I think I'm going to take my emergency blanket out and just put that additional layer on, because at this point some of my layers, the waterproofing wasn't working anymore. So that was really frustrating, but thankfully I had my emergency blanket. I took it out, I put it on as an additional layer on top of my stuff. And I also wanted to be proactive and make sure that I was doing everything to keep myself warm. So even if that snow was coming or that water was hitting us, that top layer was going to keep my under layers dry. So I took that out, and it did actually help me to keep insulated. And then at some point, I held myself back with one of my climbing partners, Cherry. We were hiking and we both stayed a little bit behind. And so she ended up having an extra poncho and she just handed it to me. And I would say maybe is the reason why I was able to summit at the end, because even though I had the emergency blanket, I mean, it was really cold. It was snowing. And so I'm very thankful to her. At this point, it had been hours. We're just staying focused, pole pole, going up little by little. And I remember the light starts coming up, and Cherry and I are together, and we're just talking to one another. And we're just really excited. We can't believe the day is finally here. And at that point, as the sun starts breaking, our guide tells us, "Hey, look at that." And we see this sign, and it's some sort of welcome sign. And Cherry and I just look at each other and we just start crying, and we're like in tears and we're hugging each other, and we're getting to the top of this sign and we're just, oh my God, we made it. And it was really emotional, actually. And I wrote down some notes that here I was with this woman who almost died climbing. And here she was sharing this experience with me that was so deeply powerful to her, and also a dream of mine come true. So it was so powerful, and it's just funny because we get to the top, we finally make it to our group, and then everyone's up there and kinda, like, laughing at us and having tea, and we were like, "Oh, wow, we must have been way far behind them." But then they're like, "Joke's on you, we're not at the summit, actually. This is called Stella Point. Great job getting here." But it really was a false summit. So it was fun, to say the least. A lot of us actually ended up talking about this who climbed, and we all got tricked. So many of the people in the group got to Stella Point and then ended up realizing, oh, we're not there yet. And also had tears and excitement and elation. And yeah, it was powerful. So we all snacked. I had some ginger tea that they provided. And at that point, we were like, okay, it's time to get going again. We need to make the last leg of the trip. And I think at this point, you're about a mile out or so from the summit, possibly. And we ended up continuing to hike on. And at this point, now it's cold, but I have all the layers on. I'm staying warm, thankfully, because of the poncho that I had received. And we're just taking it one step at a time. At this point, by the way, I took a photo of myself, and it was interesting because I noticed, looking back at the photos, I was literally starting to turn purple. And that was because of the lack of oxygen. Like, my lips were pretty purple. I was fine. I wasn't feeling anything. Anyhow, at this point, you start seeing these majestic views, peaks everywhere, snow covered peaks. It was amazing. And you do see that you're really high up. And at that point, after some time, we got to the summit, and it was such a celebration, and it was so powerful. And Connie and I were hugging and crying and talking about how we've done the John Muir Trail. And now here we were on this epic journey in Africa. And then I took out this picture of my friend Erin, who I talk about. She had just passed, and I wanted to bring her with me. And I took her photo out, and I just was in tears and crying. And I just felt it was such a powerful celebration for everyone. And as I'm sharing this with you all, I think about my friend who passed on, and I felt she was with us in spirit. And these are powerful things about accomplishing these really big life experiences and journeys that we all desire to go on, is that no one can take that from you. And it's another beautiful dream achieved. that I was able to share with amazing people. And I know every single person had their own impactful moment on the mountain. And I'm just so thankful to Mother Earth and nature and this hiking journey, the 52 Hike Challenge, for bringing me to this moment that was so deeply powerful. All of the stories from Sherry making it to Lindsay making it to sharing this with Faith and Ralph and every single person who gave it their all, and how powerful that really was. And having my friend there with me in spirit. And I read her this beautiful note that one of our friends wrote for her. And I just felt really close to her. And yeah, thank you for letting me relive that with you all. I'm going to take a moment and come back to you all in a second. I wanted to take a moment to thank this season's Rise and Wander podcast sponsor, REI. REI is the outdoor gear retailer of the 52 Hike Challenge. I've been a member since I started my 52 hikes in 2012, and they've helped outfit me for all things hiking and outdoors since then. Becoming a member has many perks like 10% back annually on eligible purchases, a satisfaction guarantee, which gives you up to a year to return any purchases you aren't satisfied with, free shipping in the US, and so much more. Please visit them at rei.com. Join me for a year of hiking in 2025 with the 52 Hike Challenge. Commit to your personal journey outdoors alongside a supportive community and make 2025 your year of hiking. Take your family, friends, furry pets on an adventure they'll always cherish. Plus, you'll gain the physical, mental, spiritual, and emotional benefits derived through nature and hiking. Learn more and sign up at www.52hikechallenge.com. And see you on the trails. Okay, so once we summited, of course, now you still have to get down. So at this point, I think it was probably around 8 or so, maybe 9 in the morning, and we took our celebratory photos at the summit, and we were just celebrating and dancing and just so thankful. And I think our guides really were happy for us. I think they really find joy in seeing you make the summit, and that was really special. But now reality hit that we had to hike down. And at this point, we have about 10,000 feet to get down the mountain. But this section of the trek down, we were going to make it to the last camp we were at. And so on the way down, now we start realizing the mayhem from the snow that we weren't expecting. And as someone who has some snow travel training, I was feeling quite upset with what I was seeing and the lack of resources, preparation, people who didn't have the right gear on, including myself, because I was traveling afterwards and I didn't bring the things thinking I would rent them. And then when I asked about renting them, then was told we shouldn't be encountering any sort of conditions that would require microspikes. And in hindsight, one of the lessons that I am going to share, and I think I learned from, is I didn't end up being adamant about I need to have this, trusting that the guidance I was receiving was correct. But I would say there were people that did bring them even after they were told that they shouldn't bring them or they didn't need them. And I think for me, it was a lesson, and I need to do what's best for me. And I could have said, no, I think I'll take them. So that's my responsibility. And that's why I always talk about when we're outdoors, being responsible for ourselves. And we're all going to make mistakes. So I'm happily always owning when I make mistakes. And I would say that was one of the times that I made an error that could have been quite costly. And thanks to the training, I had a method of minimizing my risk of an injury or a fall. And I saw how many people didn't have that as a resource. Tani, one of my friends, took off one of her microspikes and gave it out to someone who was struggling. I ended up teaching some of the people in my group how to get down in a way that would minimize any sort of fall or slip. And so people were stressed, and that was not exciting or fun. And I was really upset about that. And I understand that this happened, but Also, the temperatures on the mountains could greatly shift at any point. So I would just say bring microspikes, even if there's no expectation for weather, especially if you're at that season where there's a possibility. I think for hours, I was still under the thought process that we were not going to encounter these sort of conditions. So I will just say this, I did my best to be a leader and help those coming down that were struggling. And most of the guides were helping people that needed it the most. And at some point, when we were probably halfway down and not really having too much risk anymore of ice and snow, I started feeling really sick. And I tend to get post altitude sickness. I mean, I had all the things. I took the Diamox, I had the extra oxygen tablets, but for some reason with me, this is just common. It's something that affects me. On the way down, I start feeling very ill. And this is when it happened. And I was feeling super thirsty and hungry. I was feeling nauseated. Thankfully, I made it all the way down to camp, but I just wanted to pretty much lay down and stay there. But that was not going to happen. We had a timeline and a schedule, and we were going to pack up and head down to our next camp. So I took a little bit of a rest as best as I could because there was no way that I could really sleep. And I had a little bit of food. I could barely eat anything. All I could do was basically take it one step at a time and continue to drink the electrolytes, take some Advil, and just really try to take care of myself. There was no ability to say, hey, I need to rest. It was, we got to keep going. And at that point, we still had another 4,000 feet to our next camp. And that was, I believe it's spelled Mueca. And it was just brutal. And then the rain came again and it was intense. This experience really tested everything within myself and my group and our gear. And we were just soaked by the time we made it to camp. And everyone was exhausted. And I'm again so thankful to the porters that had to carry all our things, set up in the rain, cook for us. And I think there's just something to our group that because it was so intense, it really felt, wow, the people who chose to come on this trip really got tested in every way, shape, or form that a mountain could test someone. And I think that night when we all had dinner, we all just sat and couldn't believe what we'd all just been through. And we all felt really proud of ourselves. And it was really, truly bonding. And again, so much gratitude to the guides that helped us and the porters for all that they did for us. I did talk to the lead and voiced how I had some concerns and how I was feeling about it. But at this point, all I can do is give you guidance so that hopefully you can prevent any sort of mishap or making sure that I give you the information you need so you can be successful. So, yes, it was a huge learning experience. And I'm very thankful I was able to summit and that I made it through the altitude sickness. By the end of that day, I was feeling better. And finally, I got to sleep that night. So now here we are. We've summited. We're now at day 7. It's our last day on the mountain. It's our last day of descending down, and it was a long and extremely rocky path down the trail. And it was a really wonderful day. It was sunny and beautiful, and I could just feel the joy and happiness, and everyone's hiking down. And some of the group went much quicker than the second part of the group. I decided to stay with the second group and take it easy. And it was a lot more relaxed for me because we all did what we came to do. It was really beautiful going down the mountain and really enjoying it. And I felt I really could connect with the mountain. And we were going down all of these camps, and there was a point where we hit the forest. And I just find so much joy connecting with flora and fauna and trees. And it was beautiful. And I was just a child taking photos of all the things and finding all kinds of beautiful plants and flowers and bugs. And the guides actually ended up showing me some of the trees that they use for medicinal purposes, like the local tribes do. So I really just felt very grateful and connected to the earth and the land, and just so much gratitude, and was in deep prayer and reverence, thanking Mother Keely for allowing us to be on her and to enjoy her and to experience this incredible journey. That was really special. And finally, hours later, I made it down to this welcome, you've made it, congratulations sign. And I think we were all just so happy to be down. There's vendors that are out there scrubbing your shoes off because they're super muddy after all the rain and after all the trekking, and they work off of tips. I know some people just tip them whatever they could. And we reunited with everyone, and it was really nice. Everyone was just feeling happy and excited. We all came together and we were going to get ready to leave. And we have an actual celebration now, and we headed down to this restaurant, and it was super super fun. It was all smiles and laughter, dance, music, and we were being serenaded. There was even a ceremony where they gave each one of us a certificate of completion of this trip, and it was really awesome. And at that point, the group got together and we tipped everyone. They have a celebratory tipping culture there, so we all presented the guides and the porters with their tips. And what I will say is that everyone was very happy to receive what we gave. And from the end of 52, I ended up even tipping an additional tip for everyone. It was definitely such a highlight. We still had our bus ride back to our hotel, and it was awesome. So we were able to get to our hotel rooms, get dinner going. And unfortunately for me, that next morning after everything, I realized that I had injured my foot on the way down. It's very rocky and you're going down thousands and thousands of feet. My foot was swollen the size of a baseball, and I had to then tend to that. A tip for you is just make sure that as you are hiking down these 2 long days, make sure you're tying your shoe really well and that you're taking time to check in. Somewhere along the lines, I must have twisted it. So that was the story and the journey from the trip in essence. And in the next episode, you're going to hear from one of the participants and what she felt and went through. And there's one other episode that I'm going to be recapping some lessons and learnings and just some thoughts of after the trip. And so I hope this has been really helpful, and I hope you've enjoyed the journey. I'm so thankful that you're here, and I'll see you in the next episode.